Yes.
Hi, Doc.
Hey, good, how are you?
She was just saying you never miss.
What's
The
that?
You must
doctor,
be on your way, you never miss.
I said the
So-
doctor never misses unless he's stuck at work.
Well, I do miss sometimes.
Yeah, you got surgery, man, that's understandable.
7 miles, just in brain transplant.
I can't get this one on. I don't know if I don't remember the other one.
I will find her, because I also don't know how to.
We don't have,
Oh, is it out?
Yeah.
Or
that
is
was-
it
that was
in
the
the
last time.
or I just don't know.
You just want to hear.
They're usually on by the
you
time.
want me to do it?
Yeah, there's
Well,
one
you
years
can,
from
you can
last
serve
time.
2 terms,
Okay.
max.
The other ones were.
Really serve one
Okay.
term, and the second,
Well, okay, I love it
you
too.
maxed out. He's already here anyway, so.
It looks like, that channel 3, channel 6.
You always run right on time.
I thought, I
You
saw,
never finish late.
saw Sonny coming right before me.
Feel like that's our
He must go to the bathroom.
Oh, yeah, he's got.
On the, oh,
So it's on the other side, yeah.
Oh,
I was like,
oh, I
yeah, no,
see.
we didn't find that.
okay, alright. Memory full.
No.
No, it's not. Yeah, it is. This one's
Oh.
for me,
Okay.
so. Okay, today is Wednesday, June 18th, it's 12:35. This is the Animal Care Advisory Committee, we're gonna start with roll call.
Perkins here, Reedy's here.
Long here. Jack McCullough here.
Diana Cardenas here.
Okay, any public comment today?
I have one. Hi, I'm Rebecca Chirillo, and I live in Sandia. And I have papers on y'all's desk that I set out for you guys. This is actually a, report that I pulled from Chameleon while I was working here for my activity response times for my personal calls that I did. And as you can see, as, when we receive calls as ACOs, it was a pull, and then you would
I'm sorry, I'm so old. When you receive calls.
yeah, when we receive reports, there would be a big pool of calls in the system, and then you would go through and you would take, and you would grab the calls and you would get them done according to priorities. Priority 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and so on and so forth, right? So when I pulled this report before I left, I just wanted to know how many calls I had serviced while I worked here. But the biggest thing something that was pointed out to me as I pulled the report, which I didn't know, because I don't really do reports as often, was that first line you can see. It's an activity type, subtype, it's stray roam. And I can agree, most of the complaints are roaming dogs in Corpus, right? But you can see there, maximum response time at the top, it took 418 days was for one of those calls to be responded to. To me, in my personal opinion, that was unacceptable. Now, whether,
How many years is that?
it's a little over a year, you know, so yeah, a year and a couple of months. You can see another one down here, animal versus animal. Down the line, it took 423 days to respond to that call while I was working here. And, you know, that's not necessarily, you know, calls that were assigned to me in the end, but these were just calls that were in the system that were being backlogged. And it took that long to service the community. And I wanted to point that out to you guys today, just to show you guys that's is what was happening while I was working here. Now, whether or not that is still occurring, I don't know, but that's something that I would encourage you guys to possibly look into as far as servicing the public and making sure that the animal patrol services is
How
servicing.
long ago were you working here?
I believe I was hired in like 2018, 2019. I worked here for about 3 years.
So she separated in around 2017.
2021.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
2021.
yeah. No, I didn't work here.
So these figures are from 2021.
Yes.
Yes.
The second, one was the stray roam, 1,037. The second was dog say the
That's
second one?
animal versus animal,
Which is what, a
which is
fight?
just basically an animal attacking another animal. That's what, those are calls, and so you take reports on those.
That's not considered an emergency when dog.
Often the priorities would change. So sometimes as they were, if you look on here, you even have stray aggressive 2, and then you just have regular stray aggressive on the second and third line. So sometimes the activities and subtypes would change just with new directors, new supervisors, things like that. So priorities would also change when you would have new people coming in and trying to make things better. You know what I mean? So things would change. So animal versus animal, sometimes were low priority. I don't know if they were ever low priority or not, or if they were high priority. But because it wasn't really technically, I guess at that point, it could not have been a criminal matter. It was more of a civil issue.
And where it says stray aggressive 2, that took, 387 days. And what does that mean, stray aggressive 2?
It is a priority 2 call, and it is just an animal being called in as an aggressive animal. That is roaming, that is stray, that is loose in the community.
There's a danger?
So ma'am, please be aware the information is dated.
Yeah.
And the reporting was inaccurate, which has been something that we've been dealing
The
with since.
reporting was
Yes.
inaccurate?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am, which is what we encountered, which is what we are fixing, which is what we've been working with CityGate on.
Yes.
But the 387 days, that's not like every call. That's just maximum response time that was pulled.
That would have been the
record.
longest call.
Yeah, that would have been, out of how many calls that were done out of 488 calls, one could have been 387 days long. That took, does that make
It
sense?
might have been one.
Yeah, it might have been one, but
It's
it's
not
still,
a pattern, we're not saying it's a pattern.
well, you can look down the response times and see for yourselves, but possibly something that's, I'm just bringing it up, so something you guys can look into. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys have a question?
Yeah, Kathleen, down at the, middle of the page.
Oh, I thought I wasn't supposed to get
investigating
those
of
ones.
animal breed.
sorry.
What does that mean, investigating of animal?
So what we can do is we can take what she provided you today, and we can go over and see if we even still use those constitutions. Because remember, we have made various and numerous adjustments to all of this. So we can take what she provided you today, we'll see if we still use those, and give you explanations and what actually we found and what we fixed. Okay?
That'd be great. I think then, once we have an updated, version of this, then we can kind of see if there are any, things that we might try to come up with.
So, and there's a couple of things just to point out, so one is obviously, you will have the city gate, but one is what was discovered during the assessment with city gate about the data. But the other thing is too, is the way data was inputted, so that's another thing that was trying to work to have discover is, was it inputted correctly from the very beginning? Was the calls tracked from the time they received the call or the time they actually got to the location, and so that's why.
Was the call closed, completed, was the call marked completed? Because if the call's not marked completed, it doesn't appear in this report as being completed. Sorry, sir. But ultimately, what we're working on at this exact moment with Citygate is actually our field reports, and what some of the items that are part of that focus is response times, what is an appropriate response time, and what reports do we need to have for field to be able to track those things. The response time report specifically is noted as having glitches or errors in the data configuration. And so we absolutely can get that information for you. It's not gonna be a whole lot more solid right now. If you give us about 30 days to 60 days, we'll be able to work with Chameleon, have these reports finished, and then we can give you a more accurate.
Because again, we are still
Response.
working and implementing all of our SOPs and our procedures, which streamline and do all these adjustments to how the calls are inputted, what everything is done. So that is everything we're working on.
That's what I was gonna ask too, is there an existing SOP that needs to be updated, or has it been updated, or is there one at all?
So there is an SOP that has been written, it's in the final review. We're hoping to have a soft launch to the staff. When I say soft launch, we're gonna put it out to the staff on Monday, give them a chance to review all of the field policies. And then once that's done, we're gonna go ahead and give it back to Katie. Katie signs it, and it's put into effect to where the staff is expected to work to those policies specifically. The second part of that is the generating of the reports to track the work that the SOP is dictating.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on to approval of minutes. Did everyone get a chance to read minutes from May 21st?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Alright.
All opposed? Motion passes. Approval of absences, we did not have any. Community and staff reports.
Okay, so here is the shelter statistics report. And we're still working with Chameleon. Ultimately, what will happen with this report is Chameleon is going to generate the report automatically.
Sorry, for which report?
For these,
Oh, for the,
the information in this report, yeah. Chameleon will generate the report automatically. We've sent the layout to Chameleon, the information that we want included in it, and they're working on compiling the report so that we don't have to hard key it every month. So we're looking forward to that. But as you can see here, for our intakes for 2025 last month, we took in 357 pets, and we found placement for 74% of those. The next page shows you a visual of what we took in. Of course, the most common is gonna be stray roams. We did have some cruelty cases over the last month. These were mostly involved with failure to provide medical and overcrowding. And then our outcome type is adoption. With our dogs, we did a little more adoption than rescue. These colors didn't print well to show you that variance, I'm sorry. But adoption and rescue were our highest placement. And then for our cats, it was the same. We did have a few TNR. We are still able to get those surgeries done and get our cats TNR right now. So that's also a good outcome for us for those guys. And then when we get into our other animals, those are gonna be wild birds, possums, non-dogs and cats. We had 49 of those come in and 52 that were placed. We had a whole bunch come for birds to rescue, and then we had some relocates that kind of made it go up. So they didn't show up on our intake, but they went to be relocated, and so that's why you're gonna see more coming in than going out. So we just have to update the intake there. Our reasons for euthanasia primarily was medical. We did have parvo and distemper in our puppies not in our puppies, but we had animals come in. We had a litter of 12, or a litter of 11 come in with parvo, and then we've had multiple animals with distemper, puppies and adults, that we impounded with the illness, and so they were euthanized at intake. So that's why our medical is high when you're looking at our puppies. Kittens, because the kittens are getting older, they're wandering, we're seeing a lot of chronically injured, like just tragically injured babies coming in. And so that's driving up some of those euthanasias. Public safeties were bites. We're primarily bite dogs. We had a couple of behavior, but most of those were all, we had several SBIs last month. An SBI is a serious bodily injury. So those contributed to that. Our average length of stay is approximately 10 days. We do have 4 animals in foster care. With the changes that City Council approved, we now have a person that's going to be able to be dedicated specifically to foster care. So we're gonna be able to bring those numbers up. And then when we're looking at our microchips, over the counter, as you can see, we're getting a lot less folks coming through asking for the free microchips over the counter. We still provide those. And then of course, we're still microchipping everything that comes in that doesn't have a microchip when it gets placement. Our calls for service. So we had 1,000 new calls, which is about average for us. When we include the calls that carried over from the previous month for secondary follow-ups, maybe it's cruelty calls, maybe it's we're having to patrol multiple times to find animals, it brings it up to 1,600. And then these are the call types. Of course, our biggest is gonna be bite, which is BC. Those are the bites, the quarantine, or the cruelty, injured animals. Those are the big calls that we get as far as the priorities that we respond to as priority ones. And then the most common call we get is stray roaming. And then these are the citations that were issued. We do have a resident in the community who is housing a significant number of dogs on his property. So we're working with him to get those dogs removed, but it is generating citations.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Going back to your pie,
Uh-huh.
the outcome, canine, the rescue, that means, which is a big chunk of the pie, that means they go to,
A rescue partner.
Yes, so they were
Rescue
transferred to Rescue Partners. So we actually, I wanna say that our outcomes for our dogs were higher on adoption. Or no, they were higher on rescue basically for our adult dogs and puppies, and then our kitties are usually through the facility. We do get some rescue dogs. Yes, ma'am.
Is there any reason behind the big jump in rabies citations? Failure to obtain rabies?
So we should be enforcing that.
I'm just curious about.
So I can't speak specifically beyond that this is an issue that should be enforced, and we're holding officers accountable for enforcing rabies vaccines.
Kind of related, the overall number, from last year to this year.
And again, those were also part of that resident who has a significantly large number of dogs.
Like how many?
Well, we can see 20,
Okay.
so.
The overall increase, is that because there's more, ACOs out in the field now?
I'm sorry, say it again.
The overall increase from May of 2024 to May of 2025, from 188 to 496, is that because there's more boots out in
What are
the
you
field?
looking at specifically?
The total number, the increase,
Oh, of citations? Again,
there's more people out there.
so the officers are issuing citations, they're seeing infractions, and then we did have the one resident who.
With, yeah,
A very large number of dogs, and so he is receiving citations because he has decided not to comply with surrendering animals to us voluntarily, nor is he allowing us on his property to remove them. And so unless he comes in compliance, the only thing that we can do is continue to hold him accountable. So,
but he feeds them.
yes, he's feeding them. He also has them tied on 3-foot cords. So, yeah, I mean, it's grossly overcrowded, and it's dangerous for the animals, it's dangerous for him, it's dangerous for the block.
Fights among themselves.
Yeah. It's not a good situation for him, the animals, or his neighbors at all. So, so he did receive a significant number of these citations for your rabies, for your failure to have your rabies, for your
microchip.
not being microchipped or registered, and then for having an intact animal over 6 months. At least half of those are to him specifically.
And the city, we have health policies about, you know.
So the city, yes, ma'am, the city requires that you do not have more than 6 pets. So, he's far over the limit, but they are his property. And so we have to go through the appropriate legal channels to be able to do anything. And with that being said, the animals are not dying. So he's not, they're being fed, they're not in poor physical condition.
Mhm.
So all we can do is continue to remind him that he has way too many, and
Does he
encourage
say-
him to surrender them.
Have you had conversations with him?
Oh, we speak with him weekly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does he love dogs? Is that what it is? Or
He thinks he's helping. He thinks he's helping.
and where did they come from?
He picks them up off the street. Yeah. Or they breed.
Oh,
Yeah.
so they're not neutered?
No.
Oh.
No. It's a very big mess. It's a very big mess. So, but Miguel is in contact with him specifically once a week at least to try to get him to surrender these dogs. So.
Just while we're talking about the citations, I had somebody ask me a couple of questions about citations recently. One was, if you remove the the dogs in question from someone's property, like if they, surrender them or, whatever the circumstance is, do they still get a citation for the dogs that were not, up to date on rabies or not spayed or neutered, if you're ending up taking them?
Yes, so surrendering your animal is not a way to avoid the penalty for not obeying the ordinance, right? And so, if we go to a home, and this does happen, we'll go to a location, we'll go to a residence, and we'll say, hey, your dog is free of restraint, it's not sterilized, it's not vaccinated for rabies, these are the citations that we're gonna be issuing. They say, well, just take the dog. We'll take the dog, but you were still in violation.
Gotcha.
And, so yeah.
The other question, with that, if they don't surrender their animal, if it's an animal that they keep, I think you've said this before, but if they come into compliance, is that a way, and I'm sure this is handled more with courts, but is that something that you typically see them dismiss or reduce if they do come into compliance?
I think Miguel can speak to that more than I could.
Yes, so generally, if the individual who owns the animal, so we issue the citation soon, generally speaking, if they do end up coming to compliance, before the hearings, we have seen judges be a little bit more lenient towards that, and even in some special cases for specifically like first-time offenders who've never had this issue, who may have just, not been aware of the needs and requirements and elements that you need for housing the animals within our city limits. They'll generally let them know, we'll give you this amount of time to actually come to compliance. And then if there are any fees associated, it's entirely dependent on the ruling of the judge.
Thanks.
So the penalty in Texas for dog not vaccinated for rabies is it's a class C misdemeanor, $500.
Yes, sir.
Why don't you just turn it over to the police and let them handle it?
So, it's one of those things where I think we're here specifically to kind of help address these animal issues, and we want to do that. And as the Rabies Control Authority, that is specifically our responsibility. So that's part of the reason why we're gonna issue those citations. Coming from us or coming from the police, what municipal courts do with them is what they do with them. At the end of the day, there's, I can't think of a nice way to say this, like, the police is also the ones who have to deal with the theft and the murder and the other things that are happening. And so for us, addressing the animal issues is our specific wheelhouse.
It's very nice of you. How long has it been going on?
How long has what been going on?
I mean, you just have these dogs.
Oh, this specific gentleman.
Yeah.
So we have been working on him specifically for 3 weeks.
Okay, not that long.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. I'm sorry, I thought you were talking in general. Like, why didn't we have them handle rabies citations in general? Yes, no, but I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's relatively new. We're still trying to see if he's gonna do it, yeah.
20 dogs times 500. Not very long.
We're trying. So, and that's it, we wanna see if he'll come into compliance before we take further measures.
Is this the same guy that had the same kind of situation about maybe 6 or 7 years ago, maybe longer, over by Del Mar?
I have no idea. I mean, it's one of those things where animal hoarding is not, yeah.
Neither was Miguel.
Yeah, I've been here like 9 months, 10 months now, 11 months now. So anyway, we don't know. There's not a system, like when we look in the system, there's not something that says specifically this guy had this many dogs at that time. So there's no way for us to say. We've interacted with him over years, but I couldn't say.
Over the Del Mar area, as I remember.
Yeah, I'm honestly, Ron, I'm not even sure of the location where he lives.
And unfortunately, there's things like this all over the city.
Yeah,
not just in
animal
one
hoarding
area.
is not, he's not the lone animal hoarder.
Yeah.
He's just a big one right now. He just has a lot.
Well, actually, there was a situation years ago that I ended up with a couple of dogs, and they were well cared for and, well behaved dogs.
Yeah,
I just wonder if it's the same guy.
I don't know, but animal hoarders do tend to reoffend. So, I mean, it's possible, it's definitely possible.
Any other questions on reports? Did you have a report?
I do have the director's report before we go into the budget adjustment. So wanted to bring you up to speed on a couple things that we talked about last month. So the ASPCA grant that we had received for the $95,000, all of those projects are now complete. The TAC building AC unit is already installed, We are just making sure it maintains temp before we move anything else in there. Kennel partitions were completed, dogs are already back in those kennels, they look amazing, they're perfect. The cremation unit is repaired, it is being utilized. Staffing, last month we talked about our animal care officer cadets that had just gotten hired. They have already been in classroom training, they are now out in the field learning, on the job training. The veterinary position is still open, we are still actively recruiting, so if you know anyone you wanna send it to, please let us know, we'll send that out as well. The ACS supervisor, investigator, and lead officer positions had all closed, and now we are in the interview process for all three of those positions. Again, like we talked about, we have started the budget process. We would also like your feedback, like we do every year. So in your packet, we're going to find your FY '26 budget priorities. If you can please make your recommendations on the sheets and fill it out, send it back to us anytime between today and before the next meeting, which is scheduled July the 16th. I would greatly appreciate that. And again, we are utilizing the recommendations from Citygate and with the 5-year plan that we put together with Citygate, with that roadmap they gave us. Okay?
I heard on television that we were awarded $4 million.
And we're gonna go over that too.
Okay, so you're not asking us to do something with the $4 million
No.
paper?
No, that we have already have projects in mind, and we're already actually getting started with some. Not yet.
Do we get to say anything?
I'm sorry,
Do we get to say anything about that?
about which one? The parking lot?
Yeah, well, so once she goes over the presentation,
We'll answer any questions, and we'll take whatever you want.
Last time we did this high priority, we asked for 8 officers.
Correct, but since we've had the Citygate assessment, they do ask for additional staff members, but remember, we have to strategically request all of these positions, because once we request officers or kennel staff, we have to have stuff for them to use. Kennels to put extra dogs in, we have to have extra trucks, we have to have extra funding for everything else if we ask for extra staff. So you can put what you would like to on this sheet, and we will take that into consideration. But again, we also have to look at what else it affects, because we're a big circle. If you touch one thing, another thing gets affected.
Kathleen, we asked in the past and received 2 trucks.
You did.
We have those trucks.
Well, one of them from 2023 is here now. The last retrofitting is getting done, and we should have that hopefully within the next month on our fleet.
So there'll be 2 fairly new trucks.
Yes.
Do we have other trucks?
So that is us working with, Fleet to get other trucks purchased. So we're doing that.
Currently, we have enough trucks for the officers that we have budgeted.
Right, because we hired 8 new officers.
Right, and so we do have the fleet for those.
So they can go out in trucks.
Yes. Once they're fully staffed and they can go out by themselves, everyone will be able to go.
So if I say, because I'll tell you now, if I say, 5 new officers,
So we would want this to be consensus among the board. So the recommendation will come from the board. So
for the high priority,
Right. So would it be, hey, right, so then from there, we talked about it on the board and then say, okay, here's from the board, here's our priorities, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what we like.
Like last
So
year.
not 5 different requests coming in and it's a bit all different
Right.
5 requests.
Like last year, you guys have the sheet, you all did your stuff, you sent it to the chair and the
yes, we
co-chair.
did.
You guys discussed it, and then one sheet was sent to us.
Okay.
So you're putting your notes together to be discussed at our next meeting, and then we'll narrow it down.
Just for the record, the crematorium is back in use now?
It is.
Okay, that's just wanted to be that publicized.
So Kathleen, you're saying I can give this to Kathleen now?
You can give to Jackie whenever you like.
Yeah, Kathleen, can you get Kathleen on
To
that?
Jackie?
Okay, any other questions on the director's report? Okay, before we go on to new business and the election of new chair and vice chair, I just wanted to give our new member an opportunity to introduce yourself.
I'm Kylie. I work for a title company. I've been trying to get on the board for about a year now. So I'm excited to be here.
Kindly, since I can't see your sign, what is your last name?
Long,
Long.
long.
Glad to have you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Yes, go.
Okay, so we're going to elect a new chair and vice chair. For those of you that might not realize, Jarvis has ended his service with us. I believe he termed out. So Jarvis and I were co-chairs. We're going to be electing a chair and a vice chair. Any questions? Okay, so does anybody have a nomination for chair?
I'll nominate myself. Chairman.
Roland?
Well, I was gonna nominate Jackie since she's been doing it and you vice chair, but can we have co-chairs? Or is it,
So positionally, it is chair and vice chair.
okay,
Okay, let's start with just chair.
Roland for chair?
And you're nominating me?
Well, she said one.
One chair and one vice chair.
What I'm asking is anyone who would like their name to be voted on. And then once I have everybody who would like to be voted on for chair, we'll vote for each one. And then we'll do the same thing for vice chair. So whoever you would like to nominate, once we get all the nominations, then we'll vote for who's the vice chair. So I'm hearing options for chair as Roland and myself. Anybody else? Okay, let's do hands just so I can see a little bit easier for those that would like to vote for Roland for chair. And Jackie for chair.
Sorry, Roland. I'm so sorry.
Okay, that is for Jackie, and then you're nominating Roland for vice chair.
For vice chair.
Any other nominations for vice chair? All in favor for Roland, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. I will continue as chair and Roland is vice chair.
Congratulations, Roland. Thank you.
Congrats, Roland.
I need a higher paycheck.
Okay. Okay, moving on to budget priorities.
Which is what we discussed. Maybe we can put those together and get those to Jackie.
Oh, you didn't have any,
And then we're gonna go over this.
okay, gotcha.
Alright, if you guys would like to turn and look at the slides, we'll go over them fairly quickly for you. So this is an overview of what we presented to city council and was partially approved, final second reading yesterday at city council. With this mid-year budget adjustment, it came off of the meeting we had on May 8th in collaboration with City Gate Associates. With the recommendations that they had submitted, we had looked at a 3-year budget adjustment with funds coming from the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA interest, which will cover and fund staffing, equipment, and capital improvement projects, about 2.1 million. And then we have our certificate of obligation funds, which are gonna be reprogrammed from the AC kennel design project that we had from 2024 for the new kennels. And that's about 1.8 million that we're gonna realign with this.
What did that not pay you for?
Remember when they had done the new kennels, they had suggested that we design and construct new kennels on the new property next door? So that is being put on hold or pushed to way further in the future. So those funds that were set aside for that, we're using for these.
It was just for the design,
Yeah,
not
just
the
for the
kennel
design.
build, just
Right.
the design.
So overview of enhancements for staffing, with these mid-year adjustment, we are going to add a shelter supervisor, a community outreach and education manager, a dispatcher. We're reclassifying 4 live release coordinators to 2 adoption counselors, 1 rescue foster coordinator, 1 volunteer coordinator. And then the facility enhancements we're doing is we're going to repair our security gate, which is in the back of the facility. We are going to add an additional incinerator. We are gonna put new HVAC in kennel building 3. We're also doing what we call MEP improvements, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing in our main building and Kennel 3. We're replacing 5 of 7 roofs, and then we're gonna relook at the wash bay upgrades and field operation maintenance yard improvement. That's the portion that was not approved as of yesterday. So for our staffing, the new shelter supervisor, it's gonna be a second additional shelter staff supervisor. It's gonna be the management of the library release team and the kennel staff, that now oversees 17 people. That we can have greater attention to the program. We want to improve our live release rate and all of our processes in those divisions. Our community outreach and education manager, that person is gonna be in charge of developing and implementing community outreach events, all communication, media campaigns, everything that we need to do to increase community awareness and all of our initiatives to promote responsible pet ownership, and ultimately increasing the live release rate, what everyone wants. We have a new proposed, the other proposed position is a new dispatcher. This additional dispatcher will bring us to 2, and so we can enhance the efficiency on our call taking process and assigning calls to our field operations. The 4 reclassifications is the 4 live release team. We are going to have 2 adoption counselors now. We'll have 1 volunteer coordinator whose sole purpose is to recruit and engage volunteers. We want to build, create, and bring up that volunteer program like it's never been before. We desperately need it on campus. Our rescue foster coordinator will also recruit, support foster parents and rescue groups to also enhance our live release rate. So with these additions and realignment, that's gonna take us from 57 full-time employees to 60. And I wanted to mention that this is an amazing opportunity that we have here to continue growing. Since 2020, in 2020, they only had 33 staff members with animal care services. Now we're going to 60. The 3-year total for staffing enhancements, what we did is we are using our interest funds to cover FY 25, FY 26, and FY 27, which totals about $610,000. And the reason we did it over the 3-year fiscal period is that way we have time to absorb all of the extra funds that we need for those positions by 2028. On our facility enhancements. So our overview, as you know, here at 2026 Holly, we were built in 2004. We have not undergone any significant upgrades or repairs since then. We have 3 main kennel buildings, our maintenance storage building, our laundry and storage, and our admin building. In those listed here, in building 1, we have about 26 kennels, which is here. 22, we have 52 kennels. And in building 3, we have 40 kennels. In the cat, we have about 39. With these facility enhancements, the total cost for improvements were about $3.4 million that we asked for in just facility. Again, it included the security gate repairs at $15,000, which is this one right here. The incinerator, the additional one that we asked for is about $300,000, and that's gonna be suitable for our shelter needs. The one we have now isn't what we would have purchased in order to meet the shelter needs, so this one will be. Capital improvement project. Again, since built in 2004, none of these kennel buildings were built to have AC or to hold animals for long periods of time. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come in and retrofit building 3 first as what we call our pilot program to see and make sure and hammer out any kinks that there may be. That way we can get that building AC'd. These are our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing improvements that we need to do for our admin building and for building 3 to bring it up to code and to what we needed to do. As you saw outside, we still had our temporary AC units. We have tried to get that fixed. Now we're working on the ACs in the clinic side. We're gonna replace 5 of 7 roof systems here at the facility. The admin, kennel 1, kennel 3, definitely our cat building and our maintenance and storage. We are looking at wash bay upgrades as well. The one that did not get approved yesterday was our field operations and maintenance yard improvement. It's to significantly improve our very damaged and overworked parking area and operations yard in the back. Again, this is our hub, what we call, right? It is used all day, every day for our animal control officers. This is where we come in, this is where impound is done, this is where intake, where they take the animals off vehicles, where we clean the vehicles. So we have all of this water sitting here coming off of trucks that may have distemper or parvo and have cleaning chemicals in it. So we have to have an adequate way to get all of that off of our surfaces and filtered through a sand oil separator. So recap, we have staffing, facility enhancements, as we've listed out. So our total 3-year budget amendment summary, we had $3.5 million that we're gonna utilize in FY '25, $250,000 in FY '26, this is for staffing, and $257,000 in FY '27, which is also staffing. So we had asked for a total of $4 million, a little over, and council approved a little over 3.2 yesterday. You guys have any questions?
So, Kathleen, we have one kennel supervisor.
We do, for outside shelter. We have an acting in charge, which is Jason.
Jason. And we want a second one?
We do.
Okay. So, and then we have one dispatcher, but we want another one?
Correct.
Okay. And then, let me ask, cause I'm done. The community outreach new person, it can, that community outreach person can't serve as the volunteer coordinator?
No, ma'am. What we want is we want a dedicated volunteer coordinator person. We want their sole job here is to build, create, and promote that program. We want as many volunteers in here as we possibly can. The community outreach and education manager, their main focus is to help get all of the information out, is to help create programs, help facilitate items, do our media requests, all of that, our front-facing person.
Well, but you already, the city council has
It's already
already approved
approved.
a volunteer coordinator.
Yes, ma'am. All of this
Well,
has already been approved
yeah,
yesterday,
so-
except for the operation maintenance.
And it's a reclassification, right? So, and again, for the volunteer coordinator.
Yes, for the
It's
live
really-
release positions, it's a
yeah.
reclass.
So they had live, right, all the live release people all do various functions, right? And so this is, right, but obviously with staff recognition and city gates, now having, utilizing 4 live release coordinators to then have them to do dedicated programs.
It just seems to me there's only so much a volunteer coordinator can do.
Oh, there's so many things a volunteer
Okay,
coordinator can do. Yes,
yeah.
ma'am, and I promise, we will get them started and keep them busy like crazy.
Let me ask you one other question.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
we used to have 3 employees, now we have 60. I joined this organization because people, as soon as they knew I joined, no, you weren't here, they would say to me, we hate them, we call, they don't come. The man across the street beat his dog every day, mercilessly. And we called, everybody called, and these are professors who live on, they never called. The dog got out and a car killed him. So they didn't blame the driver, they blamed animal care because animal care never came and took the dog, and he was being beaten up every day. And they called and they called and they called. So that's why, if we have 60 employees now, how many are actually responding to calls?
So, and that's what we're working on.
Well, I got something on that. Somebody dumped a cat at our clinic this morning, it's hiding underneath the bushes. We called the city, and they came out within 2 hours.
The city came out in 2 hours, meaning animal care.
These people.
Really?
It was Sony, actually.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
Oh, wow.
He's very joking, he's
I
very
didn't like it.
Miss Chairwoman?
Well, this was years ago, because I've been on this committee several years, but that's why, and people will say that, we called and called, I've heard a lot of people say, we called and called, because this pack of dogs, wild dogs, stray dogs, they come and bark at the children who are waiting for the bus. And so the children are little children and they're scared, and so they call and call and call. What is a way to get somebody's attention? We're glad somebody went and got the cat to say, we can't have these dogs barking at these children who are waiting to get on the bus.
Well, first they have to actually make the call. So what we've run into is people will say online or on Facebook, we've been calling for months, we've been calling for weeks, and when we go and pull our system where we look at 311 calls, they have not. Right? They have gone online and they've made complaints online. Well, we have someone looking at all of that, but we can't see those at the time they put them on Facebook, and then by the time we get to it, it's hours or days later because they didn't report it to us. So that's one of the main reasons we need to have extra community outreach, so we can say, hey, this is us, call us directly, make those reports on 311. Don't go straight to Facebook, call the source. We want to know so we can address it.
I think it was like, they called, I think it was like 7:20 in the morning, because children get on those buses real early sometimes. Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Now that the library lease is being reclassified, who is going to oversee behavior?
So we are working on that, we're working that out because all of them have been certified to do behavior assessments. And so that's one thing that they're working on with operations.
Question, I didn't get a good look at the funding. All this is being done with soft money?
So all of it is, so there's a portion with ARPA interest funds.
Yeah,
And then there's a portion with certificates of obligation,
Correct.
which were supposed to be already utilized for the design for the kennels that we were gonna have.
and those matured?
And we already have those, we already have all that funding.
Yeah, so it was, so the COs were already authorized and appropriated.
Right.
And then from there, it's just the ARPA interest that now has been appropriated to utilize.
Okay, so that money is already there, it's not gonna just walk away or something,
No.
it's, okay. I was
We
just
will make
curious
sure
about
it does
that,
not.
Correct, yeah, because it's been authorized by city council. So
Okay.
that's-
As an addendum or rebuttal, my experiences with animal control have always been different. I have called them early in the morning and seen animal control officers show up in the Vendale neighborhood. And as recently as about 2 months ago, trying to find an injured dog, late in the evening, I got a text message from an animal control officer. He's like, well, where are you? He's like, well, I'm already at home, but I can go back over there. So eventually, a member of the community found the injured animal, but for about 2 or 3 nights in a row, I received text messages from animal control, look for that same injured dog. So my experiences have always been different. Sunday mornings, several years ago, called animal control, and in about 30 minutes, there were about 2 or 3 trucks looking for a pack of dogs again in the Lindell area. So as far as some of these reports being that, well, they never answer, they never call. All I can say is that my experiences have been different. And I've repeated it over and over. I see these trucks at about 7:30 in the morning, already out and about, as late as about 8 or 9 o'clock at night, still driving around, still looking for something that comes in from some of these calls. Cold mornings in January, I've seen these guys trying to eat a really quick breakfast and then head on out on a Sunday morning. So my experiences and my observations are different from what, I guess you've
I
been
didn't
told by
witness it.
constituents. Well, I did. I made the calls.
And this
I
was years
waited,
ago.
I saw
remember,
it.
Roland?
I'm sorry?
This was years ago, and thank you for that observation.
So, yeah, just wanted to get that out.
Thank you, Willie.
Sure.
I have one last thing on this call thing, because I haven't personally called, but I have been from people who have had trouble getting in touch with a person, during operating hours.
So it depends, are they pressing the right number,
Right.
one, and then two, that's where we're having an extra dispatcher put in as well, because anything during the day that is coming onto the front main line, we'll have an extra person to use it. Anything that's going directly to, say, investigators that we need to look at, we're gonna try to route that to them too during the day. But they have to listen to the phone tree and press the right number to get to the right person.
I made like four phone calls today, and I couldn't get anybody to answer the phone.
So we are actively investigating that as well.
What?
I'm actively investigating that as well.
Okay.
So we're trying to find out where that disconnect is, because we've definitely been hearing that there's people who are not getting through, and that's not good for anybody. And so we're trying to find out if it's through the 311 route, we're trying to find out if it's through the front desk route, or if it's a failure in the phone tree.
And also, were you prompted to leave a voicemail?
I'm sorry.
Were you prompted to leave a voicemail?
No, I didn't, no.
Did it ask you to?
Pardon?
Did it ask you to
Yes.
leave?
Yes.
So yeah, so that's the other thing, is we're also checking whether or not these calls are getting returned. And so there's multiple layers to the issue, unfortunately. And so there's a technological aspect that we've got to run to ground, and then there's a personnel aspect that we have to run to ground. And we're in the process of doing both.
Takes time.
It does, when there's 100 fires, there's,
And
So-
4 arms.
and 4 arms, yeah.
Would anyone like, first of all, does anyone have any last questions on anything on the budget? Does anyone have anything they would like to add to next month's agenda?
Two for next month's agenda, well, I don't know, we might be able to pursue it right now. I found out that I'm trying to get in touch with some of these media stations. I finally talk to you later about PSAs. Well, stumbled on the city cable TV channels, Spectrum 1300, Grande 20, and AT&T 99 plus a YouTube channel. I think we should start utilizing those immediately to get messages out. It'd be as simple as a small PowerPoint that runs continuously, repeated information on distemper, vaccination, spay and neuter, city code enforcement, anything. And then also add the animals that are up for adoption. It's a free service that's already provided by the city. I know that has to go through
Public service,
communications, yeah.
public service or public access TV?
Public access TV.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's called CCTV,
Yeah,
where they
Yeah.
broadcast city council meetings live and repeat it at night,
yeah. We do have public access and the comms department, they're refreshing that because the usage.
That's a
rate is-
perfect opportunity to
The
get
usage
this
rate is-
stuff out
yeah.
immediately.
Well, the usage rate is low and then the age group that goes to that, so yes, we have to do that, but then also to still engage
The
the group of
demographics.
people that don't, which is pretty much everybody now.
So,
Right, with streaming, but that's a good,
and even that
recommendation.
recommendation would be great. And then I'll hook up with our media representative after this meeting and find out why I haven't heard back on the PSAs from that organization.
because probably we haven't paid
Oh. PSA is supposed to be
for the
free.
PSAs, right?
I'm right here. My bosses are-
Are they free on your channel or is it?
PSAs are supposed to be free.
Okay, yeah, I think it's I think for like those, it's ad based.
Find out who can do
Yeah,
that.
they have
Also,
to agree, they have to basically agree to give you the spot for free. They don't just have them for anybody, any entity for free. They have to basically donate it to you.
because one radio organization has already agreed, reported that information on up, so. Second item, 657G, defines, pet shop requirements. And of course, that's written very tightly to protect from pet shops selling dogs and cats. Well, with the adjournment of the legislative session, both House Bill 3458, Senate Bill 1652 were adjourned sine die. I mean, they pretty much died without a day being voted on. So the puppy mill legislation is going to have to be reintroduced at the next session. What's bothering me is we have a national chain that has stores in both Houston, San Antonio, and I'm not too sure where else in Texas, operating with impunity in violation of the puppy mill laws sponsored or enacted by those cities. I'm concerned that the defeat of those bills or the death of those bills in legislation is going to embolden them to expand their operations.
What chain is that?
Petland, Houston and San Antonio.
They have three in life. So
Yeah,
Petland is actually, it's in a different city that's inside of San Antonio. That's why we couldn't do anything about it. So it was in Leon Valley, which is its
Yeah, Leon
own
Valley, that's right,
city.
yeah.
It's its own city.
Uh-huh.
So we couldn't do anything about it because
And
they did not have that ban.
in Houston, they were issued a warrant to show up, they failed to show up. And again, they're operating with impunity right now.
Yeah.
And they're being fed by puppy mills. It's horrible what they're doing and getting away with. And I'm just concerned that the defeat of those bills in legislature, well, not defeat, that they just died in session, is gonna embolden them to expand their operations, and I'm concerned that that might happen here.
And Roland, you want us to discuss this?
Well, I don't know if there's anything to make sure that they cannot open up shop in violation of any established laws right now. 657G covers that exclusively. Well, they've got pretty much the same, city code in Houston, but that didn't stop them.
But Cynthia, we can't do anything about it.
We can,
So
if
it
it is
depends
on the paper.
Yeah, and all of that goes through development services